On October 11, 2025, shocking news spread across the world. Ian Watkins, the former frontman of the Welsh rock band Lostprophets, was found dead inside prison. Reports say he was attacked by fellow inmates at HMP Wakefield, one of Britain's most dangerous prisons. The question now is simple, but chilling. Was Ian Watkins murdered? And how did it happen inside a supposedly secure prison? Let's start with what's confirmed. According to The Guardian and West Yorkshire Police, officers were called to Wakefield Prison on the morning of October 11th after reports of a violent assault. A man in his 40s, later confirmed to be Ian Watkins, was found critically injured. He was taken to the hospital, but despite emergency treatment, he died shortly after. Police have opened a homicide investigation, and several inmates are currently being questioned. The prison service says it's cooperating fully, but has refused to share further details while the investigation continues. To understand the weight of this story, you have to remember who Ian Watkins was and why so many people had strong feelings about him. In the early 2000s, he was a rock star. Lostprophets was one of Britain's biggest bands, selling millions of records and touring worldwide. Watkins was the face of that success. But behind the fame was a darkness no one could imagine. In 2013, he was convicted of numerous child sex crimes. Crimes so horrific that even investigators called them the worst they had ever seen. He was sentenced to 29 years in prison, and his name became a symbol of pure evil. Watkins was held at HMP Wakefield, a maximum security facility known among inmates as the Monster Mansion. It's home to some of the UK's most dangerous and hated criminals. Inside those walls, reputation matters, and a man convicted of crimes like his is never safe. In fact, Watkins had already been attacked once before. In 2023, he was stabbed and held hostage by 3 inmates. He barely survived that incident, and security around him was supposedly increased. But somehow, 2 years later, he ended up dead inside the same prison. So what happened this time? Details are still coming out, but here's what's been reported. Sources inside the prison claim Watkins was targeted in a planned attack early that morning. Some reports suggest multiple inmates were involved. Others say it may have been a single confrontation that escalated quickly. Unofficial reports mention knife wounds, possibly to the neck and chest. But police have not confirmed that. What is confirmed is that it's being treated as a suspicious death and that the investigation is ongoing. Reactions to his death have been divided. Online, many people express relief, even celebration. To them, justice had finally caught up with him. But others warned that no matter what he did, murder inside a government prison is still a failure of the justice system. Because if the state can't protect even its worst offenders, it raises serious questions about who controls those walls. For the families of Watkins' victims, the news may bring some closure, but also renewed pain. They never wanted to see him celebrated, and they never forgot what he did. Yet even they know this story isn't over. It now shifts from his crimes to how he died. HMP Wakefield has a long history of violence. Over the years, it's housed serial killers, child abusers, and terrorists, many of whom have been attacked by fellow prisoners. Insiders say it's a place where inmates take justice into their own hands. One former officer described it as a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. So it's not hard to believe that Watkins, one of the most despised men in the prison system, was always living on borrowed time. Now, investigators are piecing together the final moments of his life, checking CCTV footage, interviewing witnesses, and waiting for the results of a full post-mortem examination. Until then, one thing is certain. Ian Watkins' story didn't end with his conviction. It ended violently behind locked doors in the same kind of darkness that defined his crimes. Some call it karma. Others call it justice. But in the end, it's still death. And it raises questions that go far beyond one man. Questions about prison security, human rights, and the thin line between justice and vengeance. As the investigation continues, one truth remains. Ian Watkins' fall from fame is now complete. From global rock star to convicted predator, and finally, to a violent end in Britain's most feared prison. This was the truth behind the headlines. If you found this story informative, subscribe and stay tuned, because a full report and the truth about what really happened are still to come.